Jenna, can we have roll call, please?
Okay, trustee Gergen?
Here.
Trustee Rhodey?
Here.
Trustee Belt?
Here.
Trustee Krasovich?
Here.
Trustee Kreiser?
Here.
Trustee Grabowski?
Here.
President Knutson?
Here. Item 2, public hearings, we have none. Item 3 is approval of the previous meetings. First one is the special village board meeting, September 26th, 2024. I hope everyone's had a chance to look them over or look it over. Is there any questions, comments, corrections as to the way it is presented this evening? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item 2 is the minutes of the regular village board meeting dated October 1, 2024. Again, I will ask, are there any questions, comments, or corrections as to the way they are presented this evening?
I found a typo in 8B. It says about the importance of the white can. It's missing an E on the end.
Okay. Are there any others? Okay, do I have a motion then to approve with the correction?
Motion to approve, Rhodey.
Second, Krasovich?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain, I wasn't here.
I abstain as well. Me too.
Oh, okay. Item 4, citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, with time being indicated by an audible alarm. When the alarm sounds, speakers are asked to please conclude their comments. Speakers are asked to use the podium and state their name and address for the record. Are there any comments at this time from anybody? Yes, sir. Come right up to the thing.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Bryce Kingsbury, and I'm representing First Watch at 1466 Capitol Drive, Pewaukee, Wisconsin 53072. I'm the Director of Operations for the Milwaukee market. First Watch previously applied for a reserve Class B liquor license, and I appeared before the village board in the past. I wanted to make myself available again to answer any questions you may have as you review our application for the available Reserve B liquor license. At First Watch, we strive to create an inviting environment that all customers can enjoy. Our offerings are focused on breakfast and lunch, and we close at 2:30 every day. So there's no late nights of noise to disturb any nearby businesses. This also allows our employees to spend more time at home with their families. We don't have a physical bar in our restaurants, and our alcohol program has a limited number of cocktails. We strive to make our drinks an enhancement to a meal, and our mimosas are our most popular drink at our other 4 locations in Wisconsin that serve alcohol. Bloody Marys and sangrias are also very popular. First Watch is a publicly traded company with a proven track record of operational responsibility. We focus on our customers, our employees, and the local community. We place great focus on adhering to applicable statutes, regulations, and ordinances governing the use of alcoholic beverage licenses. We believe that First Watch restaurants fully meet the character and financial responsibility requirements set by the Village of Pewaukee for licensure, and that we have demonstrated the fitness for the trust the license represents. Our goal is to expand our offerings to the Village of Pewaukee and provide its citizens with great food, drinks, and friendly service. We're excited to be part of this community. We love being here, and we look forward to our future here. Thank you for your time and consideration, and you're welcome to ask any questions you may have about First Watch.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, we're going to move on then. Excuse me. Item 5 is ordinances. Discussion and possible action on ordinance 2024-06 to amend the official village traffic map for the addition of a right arrow sign at the section of Burrows Drive and Evergreen Lane. I believe this is coming from Public Works and Safety. Is that correct, Jim?
It is.
Did someone like to make a comment on this, or is there?
I mean, I'm happy to handle it. It's pretty straightforward, or Dave, did you want to? I could take it. It's fine. Basically, it's boiled down to there's a street which is basically a private drive. Not basically, it is a private drive that's located behind Agape. That when the new development, the Glen, went in, it was turned into a private drive with some outlots on it. The citizens there are requesting a directional arrow on Evergreen to show that the street continues to the right, opposed to going straight into their private drive. They've been dealing with numerous amount of traffic turning around then in their drive. We, as a public safety or Public Works and Safety Board, agreed and approved the installation of the sign, with the cost then falling on the residents and the HOA for installation. I believe pictures were included of locations of where it is, but it's pretty straightforward. Chris, did I miss anything?
I'm sorry, Jim. Are there any questions or comments?
Seems to make sense to me. I'll propose that we approve ordinance 2024-06 to amend the official village traffic map for the addition of the right arrow sign at the intersection of Burrows and Evergreen.
Second, Rhodey.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Ordinance 2024-06 is adopted. Resolution, we have none. Old business, if it's okay, are there people here for other things on the agenda? No? Okay, well then we're gonna go right into discussion and possible action on review of the updated draft of the 2025 village budget. Matt, I'm gonna, instead of asking, I'll just let you give a little update, see what's going on.
Okay, thank you, President Knutson. So as my memo in the packet stated, there were some updates since the October 1st meeting. This is the first time through the budget process for our DPW director as well, so Dave and I are engaged in a learning curve. And thank you, Dave, for your patience with me. So we had some incremental increases in a variety of accounts, both in both utilities and the Department of Public Works. We had an increase in the capital projects fund for potential street projects. That was another thing that Dave and I worked out together. The potential projects, street projects for 2025 are evolving as we speak. So right now, Dave is contemplating potentially one of three, and I think he's proposing that the village fund one of them, and then the board would decide which one of the three at a later point. I increased the police wages 3%. I know that we're still in negotiations over contract issues with them. So at this point, that's just kind of a stake in the ground to match what we've done with non-represented people. I also increased the fire service contract by 3%. At that time, when the packet was assembled, that was again just a stake in the ground. On Monday, I learned that the city had finalized their numbers for the fire department, and it's actually a 4% increase. So that needs to be changed for our next meeting in early November, right after the election. And then on the revenue side as well, I had increased the fees for fire and EMS to match that 3% estimate on the expense side. And I included some of the smaller enterprise funds in the packet, like the cemetery fund and the stormwater utility fund. So the net result of those changes, as you can see in the summary, the expenses have grown to be about equal to revenues. So right now, as it currently stands, the budget would be balanced, considered balanced, with a slight decrease to the mill rate if the borrowing and the debt payment were to be structured as is proposed here. And I understand that that's all still potentially changing. Finally, I've had some input from board members. So some things to anticipate to be a little different, some increased accuracy on some of the sewer utility accounts, and an increase in the interest income for LGIP, which was something that I missed an error. And I know that one of your peers is interested in perhaps using fund balance from the infrastructure fund rather than borrowing for street projects. So that is a good topic to talk about. And I think for tonight's introduction, that would be about it.
Questions or comments from the board?
I can go,
Kelly?
since I wasn't at the last meeting. I did meet with Matt, so thank you for his time in clarifying some things for me. And him and I had some really, really good discussions and floated some different ideas back and forth as far as some of the things in the budget. So some things that just to start off high level, this is more of a request from staff, which I already kind of touched on with Matt, is I think it would be helpful in our budget package to actually get one of the things that Cassie included in is fund balances, is seeing what our current fund balances are, what our projected 12/31/24 fund balances are going to be, and then with our proposed budget, seeing what our 12/31/2025 fund balances are going to be. That really gives us insight into really where the money is and where we can pull from. And I think that is very, at least for me, that would be very helpful to get that as part of our budget packages. To kind of see where the ins and outs of those funds are going to be for the remaining part of the year, and then through what we're budgeting for, so we can see where we can potentially move some money around, or see what we actually have available for cash, particularly since there's the possibility of having to take on additional debt this year for projects, to see if there's some alternative ways that we can avoid doing that. So I just think that would be helpful if staff is willing. I kind of, as I told Matt, I somewhat tried to do it on my own, but then I did realize that the balance that's set on here, that they're 12/31 projected, they were actually 9/30 projected. So then my roll forwards weren't essentially accurate when I came to the end numbers. So I wasn't working with accurate numbers. So that was just, again, one of the things I thought would be helpful for us to be able to see, looking at and unfortunately, I don't know if Chief was here at the last meeting. I don't know if that was the first meeting that the police budget was introduced. I personally think that the ask of about $214,000 in expenses is a fairly large ask in this upcoming year with everything that we have going on. So I can reach out to Chief and see what we can potentially scale back on some of these items that he has for the $214,000, if we can scale that back a little bit. For example, one of the items I'm seeing here is more barricades. we bought those 2 barricades last year, and when I was down at the festivals last year, and we were sold on the barricades because of efficiency, and they're easier to use, and I completely agree with that. But we still had all the orange barricades sitting behind those new barricades, so I didn't really see where we were gaining efficiencies at that point. So just some questions to see if we can, if we're anticipating replacing those more clunky orange barricades with these newer ones, and what efficiencies are really created there. My little thoughts on the police side of it. Obviously, the water utility we got a lot going on there. So that's, things that, as we know, we've had a lot of discussions on everything that needs to happen with our wells and water treatment and things like that. So there's got to be cognizant of what those expenses are going to be and going to be large for next year. Another question, Matt, that I didn't get to ask you is, again, back to the police vehicle maintenance. Our vehicle maintenance, we're budgeting the same that we did last year, but with our new mechanic, do we think we're able to adjust that? I mean, I know it's just a budget but we've got a tight budget, so if that's, well, Dave is here too, from the mechanic standpoint, if we think we're gonna have some savings this year with our new mechanic on our police vehicle maintenance, that we can knock that down a little bit.
I'll ask the chief about that. What I do know is that the police department does get charged for our mechanic's time when he works on police
Oh,
vehicles.
okay, well, that-
So there is expense for his department budget when we utilize the DPW mechanic.
Okay, so that's a transfer out of our police budget into our DPW
Yeah, right.
budget then? Okay, that makes sense. See, that's why you ask questions. Stuff you didn't know. I don't think there was much more, but, one of the things I did mention to Matt was potentially utilizing the, infrastructure fund for to offset some of the borrowing. We talked about some other options too that he's going to look into from a state statute standpoint to see if it's feasible or how that would work. So I'm not going to get into that at this point until we've had a chance to talk about it a little further, a little chance to do a little bit more research on that. My biggest thing is just kind of getting those fund balances, I think would be helpful.
Any other questions or comments at this time? Yes, Jim.
So first, I completely agree with Trustee Belt. Getting the fund balances would be amazing, because otherwise we just look at a bunch of numbers, and someone who's not an accounting person does not enjoy looking at a bunch of numbers. So, and then second, on the barricades, I do agree that it is off in terms of what the ask is. To go back to your point that the orange construction ones they're trying to get rid of, but they didn't have enough barricades to be able to offset to allow traffic through. But I was told by the officers down there that love them and that they have enough components to basically assemble another set of them, but they're missing one key element of it, which I brought up to our previous administrator who was supposed to look into it, but I believe that was in the sunsetting of his career. So I believe that probably got filed quickly away. So I would want to get clarification on that as well, because I think that number could be knocked down with some of the components that we still have left. And I agree, there's things like that need to be fine-lined, because that's a lot of money to be asking if potentially not needed to be spent.
I agree with both of you. And I also, with this, can you remind me, Dave, as far as the equipment that you're wanting to replace, that is for a replacement, right? For the 2007 dump truck and the backhoe?
Yes, the backhoe, we have a backhoe right now.
Uh-huh.
Getting towards the end, I guess it's 10 or 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly, so that would be replaced. And then the dump truck, also is already.
Is that the one we put on order already, but it was like 2 years out?
That's what I was wondering. because-
We decided we're not ready to order that one. We don't think we do that one yet. I had the blade, the plow blade
Yeah.
under
The belly one.
yeah. And we were just worried about causing too much damage to the animals. With that,
So we didn't put that on order.
right.
Okay.
We wanted a dump truck that was more similar to our other dump trucks, not that really large.
Okay.
Sterling does not make dump trucks anymore, do they? Last I heard, they were maybe going out of business.
Maybe we get one at
Or
a deal.
part- Yeah.
They might have a clearance
Going
sale.
out of
then.
business. Yeah.
So if we're gonna get rid of it, I think it'd be a good place to get rid of it now. So,
You might have had this in a different meeting. That's what I was getting at, is those are for replacements of those. We aren't trying to buy.
Add to the fleet.
Yeah, yeah.
are there any other questions or comments?
When we replace equipment, do we sell it? Is there, yes, okay.
Goes to an auction.
So these numbers are like the cost of the new equipment minus what we get out of it, or just the cost?
You don't get much back.
Okay.
I go to that auction site every now and then, throw around the idea of buying an old dump truck just because they're like pennies on the dollar. You want an old fire truck? They're on there too. So
I'll have to disagree. I bid on a lot, and it's crazy sometimes what people pay for stuff on that auction site.
Okay.
But this is just the cost of the purchase?
Correct. That's just the cost.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, if there's no further questions, I'm going to move on to the next item. Discussion and possible action on proposed revisions to Chapter 93 of the Village Code Fire EMS Protection Fee. Matt? Okay.
Yes, please, President Knudsen. So since my arrival, this has been an issue that the village board has been considering and reviewing. And in good faith, the board has been working hard to balance the financial pressures of the village with the impact that this fee has, or any fee has, on the taxpayers. And the proposal in this packet treats all residences the same. So to steal the phrase from our village attorney, a residence is a residence is a residence. So it doesn't look at call volumes or use rates. It establishes the base ESE using all dwelling units the same. The net impact to that, if we were just going to recapture the same amount of money that we captured for 2024, the net impact to that would be about $115 more per household for the single-family and multifamily dwelling units. And then the stuff that was in the senior housing would see a decrease. The final cost of an ESC would be $356 as opposed to the $241 that we charged in 2023. So those are numbers to recapture the amount that we captured for '24. As I mentioned with the budget, we now have updated expenses for 2025 in the fire contract. So in the next iteration you should see those numbers adjusted for, it should be 4% higher.
Are there any questions? Yes, Bob?
Matt, does this, are we able to take into account the number of units that will be opening up over 164 in Capitol?
I don't know is the initial answer to your question. I'll have to check into that, Trustee Rowe.
And then, and the other question I would have is when would Kirkland come online too?
It does not take into account. I used all the base unit counts that Baker Tilly had prepared for '23.
Okay,
for our
so we're
charters
gonna
in
have
23.
multiple adjustments then, because that's gonna be coming online soon, correct?
Not in 2024.
I'm sorry?
Sometime in 2025, I believe, mid-year.
Okay.
Not as soon as.
So the ordinance provides that no matter if you make changes to it or not, currently as it sits today, the board would have to set the ESC by resolution every year anyway.
Okay.
So, I think it provides no later than the last Tuesday in November. So it'd be a determination you're making irrespective if you make any changes to how it's calculated. So to your question, is it taking into account those units? Not if they're not online right now.
Okay, okay.
So I have a couple of questions. In your chart on here, there was it looks like what is included in senior living? That's my question, because we have 7 categories, but in the charts, we only have 6 items there. So it doesn't break down senior living versus care home.
Let me see if I can find that real quick.
Well, we're looking into that. Matt, question on the resolution then. So you're saying if a unit comes online January 2nd or later, it's not counted? So basically they get a year free?
Correct.
Okay.
The way the ordinance is structured is that determination is made in time that it can be put onto the tax
bill.
The tax bill, excuse me, for the ensuing year.
And then there's no prorating to recollect past? Okay.
Are we able to do that somehow?
I was just
or
gonna say,
not?
that seems like a loophole then, that somebody holds off getting their occupancy permit until January 1st.
Because it's structured as a special charge on the tax bill, there's not a way to do that I'm aware of.
Oh, all right. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that discussion finished?
I believe so.
Although it would be nice to put a pin in that and perhaps ask staff to investigate if other municipalities have found a way to address it that is fair and law-abiding.
Agreed.
Yeah, because that seems like a loophole. And as someone who loves living in the gray area of. And then also well, I have a follow-up on it, but I'll let you go with this because you found the information.
Oh, okay. So I think, Trustee Gergen, what you're looking at is you're looking at the 7 categories in the ordinance, and in the tables that I produced in my memo after that, it combines senior living and care home.
Okay.
Because we treated them the same. We treated them both at the 4.75 in the current version of the ordinance, and then we're treating them the same 1.0 in the proposed revised ordinance.
Okay, but I guess what I'm getting at with that is where we determined that some of those units were just apartments that catered to seniors, so were those moved to the multifamily?
Yeah, so you're referring to the appeal for Hawthorne Place. Yeah, so the result of that appeal was to reclassify the property as multifamily. So it moved it out of the care home for the ordinance as it currently sits to multifamily.
But that doesn't really matter in this calculation.
No,
Right.
no.
Because all residences are moved over to the 1.0.
Correct.
Are you just asking based on like the amount of change, the dollar
Yeah.
change?
Yeah, that's all.
I would-
And-
Oh, I see.
And then my other question is, so for these industrial and institutional and commercial, so for commercial, for every 3,350 square feet, they're charged an additional ESE, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I Can you just, I may have missed something, but why the institutional number of ESCs changed and the industrial changed from 2023 to 2024?
Yeah, so the short answer is that's just the way the math rippled out. So when Baker Tilly created their formula, they based it out of ratios or the proportion of use of the fire services. So when you create the ESC, and then you incorporate that into the different categories, you want that to reflect to some degree their actual rate. But the percentages don't always translate mathematically exactly. So that's how the math penciled out when you adjusted the ESCs.
Okay. And then the only other question I had was from a concerned party who brought light to this, if there's any credibility to the claim that like parcels such as the mobile home park on Wisconsin was counted as one opposed to individual units within that parcel? Do we
Yeah,
have
and
confirmation on that?
Yeah, that's a great comment, Trustee Grabowski. As my memo mentions, I wasn't able to confirm the unit count file that Baker Tilly had produced. It's kind of a complicated thing. So I'll include that,
Okay.
the mobile home park, into that piece of that for the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
So, sorry, one other question. I just am getting really caught up on the amount of square footage for the commercial and industrial and institutional. What constitutes an ESE for us versus Delafield and what they have? Because it seems like they have a much lower threshold for that, for what constitutes an ESE. So I'm curious whether we should change ours to something more similar to theirs.
I think the square footage that Matt has in his memo, and that's not changing from what's currently in the ordinance, and I think that's based off of Baker Tilly's original study looking at properties in the village, call volumes to properties. So I think for that piece of it, it's probably more data driven. And I'm not Baker Tilly, I'm not a numbers person, but I think that piece of it is probably more data driven from the Baker Tilly study, where it fits the village, I guess, inventory of properties more so than Delafield.
Okay.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I just want to express my gratitude to staff for the legwork they've done on this. I think that I speak for all of us when I say I wish that we had done that comparison to surrounding communities before we passed our original ordinance. I know that we have each individually and collectively as a board taken the feedback from residents and others who have spoken before us very seriously. So it's good to see that we have a path forward that we can consider. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we have, kind of tagging on to what Trustee Gergen was mentioning, do we have any concerns about the square footage? This is more of a legal question. The square footage analysis causing any, are there any legal concerns with that type of ordinance?
I don't have any. Really, the thrust of the changes, one of the thrusts, besides concerns from residents, is concerns we've gotten from other parties, the federal government's Department of Justice and that is really focused on concern over housing. And so the changes we're talking about are making changes to the classifications related to housing. Once you get away from housing, the status of protected classes and commercial properties and industrial and such, I don't have as much a concern with making different distinctions in those classes as I do with residential. The short answer is I don't have a legal concern with how this is structured in terms of square footage. I mean, numbers are numbers. I mean, you can't really poke holes in basing something off of size rather than use.
Sure. Just for my reference, the larger senior living homes and such, those are zoned as what? Are those
I
zoned?
think they're
as-
zoned R5, residential 5.
They are, but the classification and assignment of ESCs is not based on zoning. It's based on the definitions you included in the ordinance, which aren't changing.
Got it. I was just curious if they were zoned commercial.
Sure, so if a senior living happens to be zoned in institutional, basically old zoning, it would still, if it falls in senior living under the fire and EMS ordinance, that's what it's classified.
Okay.
I have another question. So back to Delafield. I noticed that they have the ESE per dwelling unit and patient bed count if applicable. Is that something that we should include?
Just from a high-level response, Trustee Gergen, I would say in order to satisfy the other agencies that were examining our ordinance, just keep all residences the same. So whether they have bed counts, whether they don't, whether it's a single family, just treat them the same.
We don't do bed counts for single families.
Yeah, right.
And in the village, the former administrator and I went through the different ones in the village that are senior living care home, and I don't believe we have any nursing homes that fit that definition in the village. So I don't even know if there's something that would qualify where we would be happy to look at bed counts anyway.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, then, I don't think we're gonna, let's see here.
It's not set for action.
Possible action.
But we have to table it until we
Actually,
get back on mobile.
actually there was, but we're not gonna do anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's agendized for action, but I think the purpose was for feedback. We don't have a
Right.
formal ordinance here for approval or anything.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Yep.
Okay, well, then we're gonna move on to item 8, new business. Discussion and possible action on well 7 site selection. I think Dave's up here to talk to us about that.
So the village board approved a consent order with the Wisconsin DNR this summer on August 6, 2024. Required the village to locate, potentially acquire a site if we didn't already own one, and construct a new well referred to as well 7 to replace the aging well 2. There is a timeline to locate and construct a new well, well 7 to replace well 2. The next deadline that we have to meet is March 31st, 2025, which is to complete a well site investigation report, plans and specs for the test well. Then there's additional timelines in 2026, 2027, 2028. And we have to return to full compliance in 2029. On November 7th, 2023, the village approved a contract with Rupert Milky to provide professional services to conduct a well site investigation. The village and Rupert Milky have been working together on this process over the last several months, identifying and evaluating different sites. Collier Consulting is a sub-consultant of Rupert Milky and is also helping us looking at the hydrogeological suitability of the different sites. This item was brought before the Public Works and Safety Committee meeting on September 3rd, 2024, and again on October 1st, 2024. Staff presented 3 potential well sites for well 7. On September 3rd, the committee voted to recommend that the village board proceed with the selection of the Cecilia Drive parcel for locating the new well 7. The committee also asked staff to prepare several site layout alternatives for further review, which will be in the PowerPoint. On October 1st, the Public Works and Safety Committee voted to recommend that staff proceed with the site layout labeled Figure 2. The action requested of the village board tonight is to review the potential well site alternatives and potential site layouts and consider the recommendations from the Public Works and Safety Committee and vote on a final well site and general layout to allow the well siting process to continue and to get to their end goal of completing a well site investigation report that has to be submitted to the DNR. The name and the location of the 3 potential well sites were Village Park, and there was the back outlot of the Hawthorne Hill subdivision, and the Cecilia Drive site. A PowerPoint presentation is prepared by Brooker Milky showing the locations of the 3 sites. We also reviewed the 2022 Village of Pewaukee water system master plan. As the evaluating process evolved, we realized that over at our well 2 right now, this was known, but we didn't really take it into account initially, there's an underground storage reservoir there of 125,000 gallons. And so whichever site we pick, we're gonna also have to construct a water reservoir, a water tower or a water reservoir. There is an underground reservoir at well 2 right now, but the DNR isn't encouraging those to be used going forward. Some of the evaluation criteria that were involved in the site review were, number 1 was the hydrogeological suitability of the site and the quantity of available groundwater. Number 2, project costs to acquire the parcel, drill well, construct a well building, construct possible filtration equipment. Number 3, ability to acquire the site. Is it already owned by the village or a private entity? Number 4, the proximity to existing utility connections. Number 5, contaminants in the deep versus shallow wells. 6, proximity to other deep or shallow wells that the village has. Number 7, the incorporation of the water storage reservoir. Number 8, the long-term tax income collected or not collected from whatever parcel that we choose. Number 9, the aesthetics of the infrastructure at the site, architecture, sight lines. Number 10, other design considerations such as floodway, floodplain, tree removals, access locations, easements, future expansion areas, reduced park areas. Chris Epstein is here from Brooker Milky, and he's going to kind of go through the PowerPoint that we put together.
Do you want me to take a picture? Okay, I'll tell you now.
Yep, there's
Has a slide?
the film strips and elevators.
Overhead projector.
It's the first time I'm talking in front of you guys. Thanks for having me. And let me know if you can't hear me, because sometimes I don't know how well I project. But so anyway, as Dave mentioned, yeah, we looked at those 3 different sites that you see there. On the next slide, if you want to bring up the first one we looked at, was just throwing some ideas around. Was, okay, what kind of land was available to the village that they owned? And one, of course, is obvious, is the park. And we kind of looked at the back side of the park. There's some floodplains back there. And we said, well, there's open area in front. And can we put a treatment building and maybe utilize some of the existing reservoir at well number 2? We could pump over there. And then there's already pumps there that we could pump it out to the system. So that's kind of some of the idea. But, you know, you have beautiful, I mean, I've been down to that park. There's beautiful oak trees in front. And you know, I hate cutting down trees if I don't have to, and I know it's not usually publicly acceptable. So we're that's one of the disadvantages of the site is, you know, it's your public parkland. And if you go to the next slide, I think break down the, here's the beautiful views of the park, of course. I'm just showing the different layout of that. If you can go to the next slide, I think we go into the pros and cons. And we're close to some water main and sanitary sewer near there that we could utilize, like I said, using existing property owned by the village in the close proximity to cons. Yeah, we're just blocking, you know, some of the visual of the park, and also some, you know, you got people that there's more population around there. We don't want people getting hurt at the facility or anything like that too. And limited space for future expansion. So then we looked at, if you want to go to the next slide, we're starting to look at Cecilia Drive, and I know Dave was found this out just through discussion with other people, and this is available and looks like a nice large site to build a water treatment facility, and there's good infrastructure nearby, and the stars on there represent different areas where we're looking to put maybe the water, like a water reservoir, like a water tower, or the facilities. And one thing that's nice about this site too is we had to look at the hydrogeology in that area. And we did have John Jansen with Collier look at this too. And he's our main hydrogeologist. And it's a good water producing area. We had to consider how close we were to well number 3. And we didn't impact that. We had to look at all the nearby wells. And we want to make sure we didn't impact that. And yeah, if you want to go to the next slide, that just kind of gives an idea of the property. But one thing we wanted to consider also is we didn't want to take up too much land, because I mean that would allow the village to sell it off for commercial purposes for tax income and that. I think the big thing about this, really nice about the site, we can kind of tuck the facility in the back of that and still have enough taxable parcel available. There's enough size for future expansion. There's a 16-inch water main nearby. So yeah, it's the big things that we looked at there. We would have to, we'd have to put a storage tank on the site to replace the storage at well number 2. So that's additional infrastructure. Yeah, if you want to move on to the next side, we can look at, there's also the Hawthorne Hills. We wanted to look at another site that was maybe not, we wanted to look at publicly available land, but also maybe some private available land. And this was one that was brought up to you by the Hawthorne Hills. We call it the Neighborhood Association, right?
Yeah, well, staff, with water utility, John and I were just wanted to come up with another option. It wasn't village owned, and sort of just clicking on parcels, and then just naturally it's very high up, so think of it as a go through the water tower, and then went out there. We told me that people who lived out there was at lunch who was on our public. If we were going to ever pursue that, we would need somebody to kind of be on board with us acquiring the parcel. So he took us on a tour of that area, and it didn't look like it would be large enough. And the people that live out there have experienced some water issues related to. So that area is so high up, it's in its own pressure zone, and it has booster pumps that are at the base of that hill that pressurize that area. So it's different than the rest.
So to Dave's point, one thing that we like to look at hydraulically as water engineers is we like to put our water towers up high. It's just less that you have to build for the capital cost of the tower itself. And elevation, of course, plays in the role of the higher you get, the more pressure you get down lower. So that's why we want to kind of look at that. So that's one of the pros. It's to help out the boosted area by putting the tower up there. And then, bear with me, I'm just trying to remember. Okay, there's the highest point, and that's where we talked about where you spend less for your water tower in the long run. One of the cons about this is we had our hydrogeologist look into this area, and the guy that we work with, John Jansen, a lot of you know, from my understanding, is he has a good history of the aquifer in this area, and he also did looked at well number 5 area. And one thing is there's this there's like all these the water formations. There's this quartz site in the area, especially like if you go to Ryan Street and to the north there, you get your sandstone, your water producing layer is very thin. So that's one of the areas that, that's one of the concerns with the Hawthorne area. So that's why we narrowed it down to the Cecilia site. We thought the topography was easy to work with, little or no tree removal. Hydrogeology in that area was favorable for capacity. It's on already village-owned property. Doesn't take away from the parkland. And then less foot traffic in that area. Oh, this just gives some ideas of maybe what a building looks like. This is, of course, the well number 5 building. There's different architectural features you can do to make these things look nice. Of course, you're going to pay for more you want it to look nice. Here's some examples of you can do a ground storage reservoir, and then instead of using a tower, use the gravity to pressurize, you use pumps. So you can either look at, maybe might be a cost savings with going with the water tower because you're using the gravity instead of having to spend electricity for the pumps. But then, the other thing too, it is a structure you have to maintain and paint. And sometimes, it's a huge structure you're putting in somebody's backyard, so you're gonna look at that too. Then with the ground storage reservoir, like I said, we can create a pumping station with that.
Excuse me. So it's almost $1 million less to do the ground storage than the elevated tank, right?
Yes, that's true. And because I just know off just working on a water tower project recently, it's 200,000 gallons. It is $2 million, a little bit over $2 million. So just because of all the steel that goes into it, with the ground storage reservoir, you're saving more on that. But there's one thing you've got to look at is what we have here is capital costs. We don't have operational costs.
Right, that's what I was wondering, the advantage of not having a pump over time. I wonder at which point those costs would level out.
It would be good to have an updated benefit cost analysis. Just to compare the two, and I don't have something recent that I have confidence in right now and to share.
But we'll have to do one or the other of those plus the radium removal treatment facility?
Yeah, that's the thing with this area. There's 2 wells in this community. Is well number 5 as the treatment system right now. And right now we're building a facility at well number 4. And that's the southeast Wisconsin. That's just nature of the underground minerals and the rock and stuff. It just has radium in it, and that's the unfortunate thing because it costs a bit to remove it, and that cost there reflects to close to what's going on in well number 4.
Was there any consideration to the city's development anywhere along Highway 16, on the north side of Highway 16, and their needs and the possible cost sharing in some of this?
Okay, so you're looking at on the north side, City of Pewaukee, my understanding, talking to Dave Beagle.
Either one of you, yeah.
Yep. No, I was saying my understanding, just talking with him, was that the city was looking at Bryant Street on the north side. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That development over there. So the one thing is that plays into doing a deep well there. You run into that where you're not going to have the sandstone layer for the water production. I didn't look into that too much with the city. You were more involved.
Yeah, so I've met with them twice so far to go over their potential development. Well, their development they are going to do with the Winkleman farm. And it just happened that I was going through this whole process before we met with them. So some of the criteria we were using for looking for a well location was that you don't want to have a deep well in about a mile of another deep well. So that their whole Winkleman farm area would be not a good spot for a well in that area, for a deep well. And it would have a negative effect on our well and their well if they put a deep well over there. It's called the zone of influence.
Yeah.
And so I had told them that in one of the meetings, that was going to be an issue. Because they were initially thinking about possibly putting a well over there. Either deep or, I think they had mentioned deep. It's too close to we already have well 5 right over there, which is on Quinlan Drive. And that would be a problem.
I guess the other thing is, yeah, if you sell water to the city, that'd be another.
So in our second meeting that we just had with the city, they did bring up that option for consideration to have an emergency connect to our system. But they would be, right now, for the Winkleman farm, they're going to be planning on running a water main down Lindsay Road. A long distance. They have to run water.
I have a question. Did you even consider looking at property that we could possibly purchase in the village of Pewaukee? I know of one property that has been a real problem to sell for the owner, and I think it would be a perfect spot for a well and a tower.
Where is that?
On 164, right next door to Costco. There's a small piece of property that's on the north side of Costco that the gentleman has been trying to sell, and with no success for many, many years. And it's like 13 acres, but unfortunately, I think 75% of it is wetland or conservatory, but it's all flat. And I think that might have been a piece of property that maybe we could look at and consider.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Cecilia's further
West.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
so this would be east of Cecilia.
Yes.
Right next, when you drive down, the only entrance and exit to that piece of property is exiting off of Capitol or through Costco, entering through Costco only. Because it's on the side, it's before this. If you're going north, you can't, there's no roadway going over to that property.
Dave, didn't we have to have something submitted to the DNR in terms of site selection by a specific deadline?
March 31st, 2025.
Well site
We have to complete our well site investigation report, and that will take some time to do that.
So, I mean, we try to get those pretty quick, so in our process, which can take, about 3 months.
Running out of time.
So do we know any one of these sites would work fine?
I know Cecilia Drive is the one that
You've run tests on it, and
we haven't run tests, but our hydrogeologist, we're depending on his knowledge of the area. But we haven't run any test wells or anything like that.
There was pretty intense discussion at Public Works and kind of consensus that the Cecilia location of these 3 was the most optimal. But if there's a 4th that's worth considering.
I think if we could.
because I have a feeling that having dealt with that neighborhood over the years, we're over on Cecilia, they probably would be okay with the lower tower, but they'll be in here with pitchforks on the high one.
Well, I think we should do it based off of what's best for the village.
Right.
Okay,
And I'm just saying
you know,
that-
so I think, you know, and whether we go with the elevated or the lower tank, I think it's a matter of, you know, you brought up a question with another property, but I think again, it comes down to, if it makes sense to put an elevated, the water tower up for the village, that's what this board should
And
consider,
that's-
if that's the site we go with.
And that's why I was thinking of that fourth site, because you're right in the major commercial area of the village. You have 3 very large residential areas there, which one of our trustees live in, and our past trustee lives in the other one. So it would definitely help to feed all of that area, and might take some of the strain off of the other wells, as they say.
Yeah, I guess we have to look at how close this is compared to all 3 is the nearest.
Plus, we got that new one going up too.
The other thing too is the options, like, there's usually the 3 options. One is like the water tower, there's the ground storage reservoir, the steel. You can also, I mean, depending on, architecturally, how you want to fit it in with the existing building, you could add it as a concrete structure added onto the building.
Sounds expensive. Yeah.
So what square foot utility?
Right. As Trustee Krasovich was mentioning, this was discussed at 2 different Public Works meetings. The cons of the other 2 sites that were discussed here way outweighed the cons of Cecilia. Be it, we didn't want to take up park property, we didn't want to cut down trees, we didn't want to have it the first thing you see when you pull into the village's main park. That was just pretty much a non-starter for anyone, as well as, being a safety issue and everything else. And then the Hawthorne one was not our property. It was an incredibly deep well, and while it would have eliminated or potentially eliminated the need for the pumps and gave them redundancy and reassurance in Hawthorne, again, as Trustee Rhodey pointed out, we had to do what was best for the village and not one specific neighborhood. And being the variable unknown of it not being our property and not knowing the potential costs associated with it, that took that one off the board for the board.
And I think there were problems actually with that location as well, based
Right.
on.
We didn't know the output that it was going,
Output, right.
it was going to provide. So it was basically a roll of the dice for, like I said, way too many cons on it. Cecilia made sense because we owned it. I think we're going to get to it with in terms of the site layout map of it. Not be so invasive in the village, in that neighborhood. If we can explore that other parcel that President Knutson brought up in a timely manner, cool. Never hurts to look at it, but from a Public Works Board standpoint, the Cecilia one made the most sense by far.
I would think also the Hawthorne Hills would be an issue where you've got probably the highest concentration of private wells. Would those be affected by anything we would do up there?
I think they would probably want to be, I'm not a hydrogeologist, but the thing that as an engineer, I can think of is that these would be shallow wells. So
Okay.
it would be a different aquifer.
Okay. Because I know some of the older housing to the west and the north would probably be on private wells yet.
Yeah, something that.
The Hawthorne one was also, not only was it not our property, but then it'd require easements from other properties to have an access point to it. And now you're talking purchases plus easements, and it's going to get very muddy from a legal standpoint, so.
Yeah. Where we want to go with it. Maybe a different layout.
So the hatched areas, figure 1.
Yeah, so we have, of course, as the DNR regulates a lot when we do drinking water. A lot of these are setbacks that on there. We need to be 200 feet from the sanitary sewer. And we don't want to dig up the main street, but we don't want to dig up the sanitary sewer. We want to change the pipe in there. So we have to look at, where's the best spot to put it. And I wanted to utilize as much of the property as possible. I mean, I should say utilize a small area so you can have the best development. You're kind of looking at tucking in the corner there. And we have two different ways of looking at putting, a tower or a tank in the back of a residence, residential, family house. Well, and then putting a pumping station there, or if you go to, site number 2, you can see where you don't utilize that space as much, but then not in somebody's back. You also have the, I mean, it'd be the quietest.
Is there any noise coming from either one of these buildings?
Let's say the biggest noise, I mean, we need to have a backup generator that would be contained inside the building, block wall.
Okay.
We can put sound insulation.
Okay.
But that would just be, that's not a consistent, constantly running.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like,
But what if you did the ground level with the pumps, as opposed to the tower, or how loud are those pumps?
yeah, I mean, well, the pumps, I mean, contained into a block building. It's gonna be, you're not gonna hear them. And that would be with the ground storage. Yeah, in there again, it's yeah, other things we gotta consider is just getting well maintenance readings in there. We gotta turn around. There, that's just mirror image showing.
Dave, can you remind me again which one the
Figure
bullet?
2 is the one that the Board of Public Works.
And what was their reason for that one versus the first one where it was tucked in the back?
We were trying to preserve the sight lines in the backyard.
That was the reason?
One of them, and it also maximize the marketing of it,
area.
or the marketing, using the water tower as billboard
Right.
for those who watch. That everyone's gonna see when they're going down Capitol and.
Yeah, two of them, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna know where they are.
That's
About time.
true.
Get a Chick-fil-A sponsorship or something.
Yeah, just a quick about that photo there. The difference between the two is you can see the combination of the circle, the bowl, number bowl.
So we, as a board, we settled on figure 2, not settling on water tower ground storage. It was just layout. That is basically what the DNR was requesting in terms of site selection and all that. The other details can be, that's interchangeable.
Once we drill that well, it's very expensive.
Again, what was the recommended option as far as the layout?
This one, number 2.
That one right there, okay, all right.
I do like the fact that we can have commercial property in front of it, you know. Mhm.
And it will have to go through zoning, planning commission, because it is not zone institutional.
Do we know the zoning on that, Matt? Offhand?
I believe
it
it's
is-
multifamily.
At one point, we looked at changing it to park, and it was discouraged, so I can't remember exact.
I think it's still multifamily.
It's a residential for sure, I just don't know what classification of residential it is. Is it 2?
So are we able to make a recommendation that's contingent on the rejection of this parcel near Costco?
You can do that.
That's like, wait a minute.
Should I say it again more slowly, though? Yeah, it was a lot of word salad.
Yeah, I mean,
Or should we table and revisit?
I think the proper thing to do would be if the board wants to look at and have a full presentation on a potential fourth option would be to table it and allow that to come before the board.
I'll make a motion to table this discussion so that.
Hold on, does that screw anything up timeline-wise? If it has to be delayed till November? Or no, wait, yeah, it would be the November meeting.
2 weeks.
I have to, so I work with hydrogeologists to develop this site investigation report, because they have to do other things, put it down more closely. So I would want to talk to them a little bit about part of their timeline.
Sorry, Chris, I just wanted to.
No, that's a
yeah.
very good question. No, I don't want to get in the way of hydrogeologists. for
Yeah.
heaven's
Well, I
sake.
mean, the other thing to consider is you have a recommendation from the Public Works Committee, and if a fourth option is going to be investigated, I think they should have the opportunity to take a look at it as well.
Ugh, so it's a month at least.
I mean, it would have to be November
I should have
then.
had this idea sooner.
Well, I thought they would be looking at all sites.
I don't think we were all even aware that that was a site. We need that insider information. Now what?
Yeah, my only concern is there's been a lot of thought put into this, into the decision. You know, we just came up with something tonight
That's a maybe.
that we have no idea what we're dealing with here. You know, that could very well be a non-starter. We don't know that. But yet we have one where we've got a proposal, but that has been looked at. And again, we're kind of on a tight timeline here.
That's not up to us.
Yeah.
Right, DNR. The good news is we'll probably need another well.
That's true, yeah, we'll
That's
put that
true.
one in our back pocket.
There's still hope to sell that parcel.
So do you want to remove your table, or?
I don't think you finished your
I'm
motion.
not even sure I got the motion out before everybody
Yeah,
said
sorry, I
it's a
cut her
terrible
off,
motion.
so. So what are we needing here?
Well, I can make a motion then to recommend the selection of site layout 2 for the proposed well number 7. This is Celia Drive parcel.
Second, Grabowski.
So we're just approving the location, but not what's going to be there exactly.
Well, there would have to be a well and then some sort of storage.
It says the village board will be asked. It says the village board will be asked to review and approve the selected well site and general layout.
So the big thing is when you do the well site investigation, why do you let on to that? I mean, it can be changed later, but it's true.
Well,
I
figure
think the
two.
board's concern is the water tower versus the ground reservoir.
Yeah, I want.
Choice of equipment.
I want to hear how much it's going to cost to operate them as well.
But you just needed the site selection for the DNR report,
Right.
which,
But either one can
which is
go
that,
there,
figure
right?
2.
Yeah, yeah.
Where I have that arrow with proposed well number 7. Give that, you know, we say that this is where we want to go, we can finagle things on the site here a little bit. Try to fit everything in. I mean, I try to look at the worst case scenario.
Well, I think, just so I'm clear, we're okay with this layout, and the X's would go where those are, because you're Xing the center of it, so it doesn't matter the diameter difference. So if we just go with this one for the purpose of the site selection and the DNR report.
Exactly, because I can expand to the north with the building if I need to, I can go to the south. You know.
But the X placement is at the arrow where we now see it labeled proposed well number 7.
Yes, and my biggest thing is having a truck to be able to make this really good backup and pull that pump right in front of the building. And then also I have a setback, you know, with it, where I don't have to, we need our limits. And zoning setbacks. We won't let that work, zoning setback.
Do we have to specifically mention figure 2 at all or not?
That was it, part of the motion.
Oh, that was part, sorry.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and possible action on transfer reserve Class B intoxicating liquor license applications House of Theo LLC, DBA Rosati's Pizzas and First Watch Restaurants, Inc., DBA First Watch number 6012. Who wants to handle this? Yeah, I guess.
So this was brought up to the board at a previous meeting. We did, per our ordinance, publish the notification in the paper on September 7th. Applications were due on October 7th. They were opened on October 8th, and we had 2 applications. The first one was House of Theo, DBA Rosati's, and the second was First Watch Restaurants, DBA First Watch. So those were the only 2 received, and they were filed timely, and everything looked good in the application, so I think.
Questions or comments from the board?
So just to remind the board, this is this is a license that the village purchased. So this is not the same category of license that was considered a few meetings ago where the board, based on past practice of first come, first serve, issued a license. First come, first serve, this does not apply to this. The ordinance that the board adopted with respect to considering these additional licenses that you purchased, that ordinance applies. And just to remind the board that assuming that the application has been timely submitted and published and that has all occurred, the board shall meet to review the applications received and shall also consider the applicant's compliance with the village code and how the application and proposed business conforms to the village's comprehensive plan, development plans, if any, and the village's zoning code. So there's 2 applications. There is only 1 available license. So as you deliberate which license to potentially grant, those are the items you have to take into account. And I would just remind the board that they do retain the discretion not to issue a license at all if that is the determination that's made. So,
Discussion?
Heather, you look like you want to start.
Anybody wants to jump in on this one?
Well, I think that we should issue the liquor license. I don't think the village needs to continue to hold on to the license at this point, especially when we could use the money. And I think that since this is the second time that First Watch has applied for it, I am leaning towards approving it for First Watch.
Anyone else?
I'll chime in on the fact that, yes, I agree. We might as well move it now. It's not doing us any good. It's not growing in value or anything. Yes, this is the second time First Watch has came in front of us for it. And in specifically regarding these 2 applicants, I lean more towards First Watch just because one is ready to use it to its fullest extent right now, whereas the other one is looking to expand. And as a village, I know, and Jeff could speak of this as well in the past, people have procured licenses and sat on them, just because they had the building, but didn't exactly have the restaurant ready to go, and tied it up for, which is, legally within its, capabilities. But that's not the best use of it. We purchased this for someone to add vibrancy to the community, to take it and run with it immediately. That was part of the requirement, that if they were going to purchase it, it had to be implemented right away to its fullest extent. And I personally believe that's First Watch as these 2 applicants stand.
I agree with that. Actually, the immediacy of being able to use it right away versus the interest to expand leads me also to lean towards First Watch.
I would also say that I'm pleased that we got to conduct this experiment. I think we now have a clearer understanding of what the appetite is for a special license at this expense in the downtown triangle. And I'm ready to go ahead and issue it as well. I agree with Trustee Gergen and those who've spoken previously.
I'm falling in the minority, I'm gathering. We denied First Watch the first time because it didn't really meet with our comprehensive plan and what we wanted and what our vision was. $30,000 isn't making or breaking the village. I do believe it was, as I stood with it the first time, that it is, that we chose to buy that license as a future investment into the village. I think they're both strong applicants. I don't have anything against either one of them. I am still feeling strong of a license being utilized more in the downtown area. I think that provides more vibrancy and more what we're ultimately looking for. Again, I'm not opposed to those, anything against those particular applicants. I just, is the narrative, what the discussion is flipping a little bit from what we had the last time this came up. I just still stand with where we did the first time.
That is very true. The one thing I would say that I think held sway for me and perhaps others is that we did acquire another license and have already been able to use that license with one of our downtown businesses. So that made a difference for me.
Yeah, me too.
Kelly, I wholly respect what you're saying and do agree with you on it in terms of, we procured it for use in the downtown. Trustee Krasovich is right on since that discussion we have one. And then also since that discussion, liquor laws have changed, allowing for breweries, brew pubs, things like that to be given a full liquor license. So while we do still have open parcel or open storefronts downtown, my hope is that attracting one of those, and there are things in the works that would be able to bring in without requiring one of our full liquor licenses.
So say that again.
So like a brewery, the new liquor laws that went into effect this year, a brewery or brew pub, where before could only sell their beer, now can get a full liquor license that doesn't count against a municipality's total.
With liquor or just beer and
Correct.
wine?
No, full liquor.
Okay.
So those changes to give some more flexibility that we're not beholden to this set number, relaxed me a little bit on this, because I know through discussions there have been some breweries that have now been kicking around the idea because they can expand to a second location and still have I don't want to say grandfathered. Yeah, exactly. So there has been some flexibility created since my last discussion, but I definitely agree with you and don't fault you for your stance. I appreciate that one because the downtown I'm just as passionate about. So
No, but thank you for that insight. That does.
I was actually going along the same line as Trustee Belt originally. What you mentioned in regard to the changes just help out a little bit. Still have concerns about any potential development that might take place in the future. Oakton Avenue, wherever. Both of the businesses that we're talking about, we go to both of them, and they're both great businesses.
The other thing that's nice is they've relaxed the wine licenses, because before you used to not be able to get a wine only to accompany your beer, which are unlimited number of beer licenses, unless you did at least 50% of your revenue from food. So that eliminated some of the parcels downtown from being able to get wine licenses, but now that's changed. So it's not a full liquor license, but it still allows some flexibility for new locations.
Any further discussion or comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of reserve Class B intoxicating liquor license to First Watch Restaurant.
Second, Krasovich.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried.
So the statute does also require, though, that if you are denying a license, which you are in fact doing, you have to do so as well by formal motion with reasons. Here, there's no licenses available. Similar reasons before, but there does have to be a formal action with respect to the remaining applicants. since there were two applications.
Okay, do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to deny House of Theo, DBA Rosati's Pizza, for the transfer reserve Class B intoxicating liquor license application, due to the fact that we don't have any licenses remaining.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Discussion and possible action on rehabilitation needs at World War I Memorial using ARPA funds. I would just like to say thank you, David. You're doing a great job getting caught up on a lot of stuff around here, cleaning things up.
We need to have a break. So for someone to use the restroom.
You need a restroom? Okay. I'd like to have a 5-minute break. Okay.
She was waiting for that well chat to be done, but it. Oh, this discussion of water utilities probably doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Well, I don't know. Why would you say that? Oh, well, I don't know.
Is this the place that you're talking about?
No.
Are you talking about back there or over
I think
that way?
he's talking north along 164.
Over there. You gotta get, it's, here's 164. Okay. Get on to Costco.
Like go into Costco?
Yeah. The entrance. This property right here.
Oh, this little guy?
Not little, it's 13
This
acres.
one?
Yeah,
And then it goes all the way to that cornfield? Or not?
I believe so, yeah. And the state will not allow a road or the county going across to get in if you're going north, so you have to go in through Costco, which Costco,
So does it
according to
include,
contract, does have an easement.
include that cornfield
Though
there?
that's all wetland and conservatory, conservation, and it's basically, if you can move the,
Like, it's that, where the trees are.
right. When you go into Costco and you look to the right there.
Who knew? Gotta have these lifers.
I know,
They know all the spots.
I'm not at all happy that they did not investigate more sites. This is just,
You know, I don't think they were aware that that was a parcel.
they didn't do their due diligence is what I'm saying.
Next 12, Jeff, next 12. There's gonna be another
I'm
one.
not happy, I'm not happy about that. Because this could have been maybe even cheaper to do it there. and
You gotta buy it though.
Bigger time, huh?
You gotta buy it though. You gotta buy it.
That's
That
true,
land.
that's
Yeah,
true.
but
I guess the one question I would have with that is, if it's a lot of wetlands, do you have enough buildable area?
you got 4 acres.
You got 4 acres to build on? Okay,
You got more there than you do on Cecilia.
okay.
I like the Sicilian
But the
place.
thing is, everybody that has wanted to build something doesn't like the idea. They have to get permission through Costco.
Yeah, it's not ideal for a lot of purposes.
Right.
I got you.
Okay, we all set? Let's go.
Thanks, guys.
So, we're back on? Okay, Dave, you're up.
Trustee Chris Krasovich has contacted DPW earlier this year about determining maintenance needs for the World War I memorial at the lakefront. After being contacted by various people, the war memorial is a brick structure with several flagpoles in it, I visited this started back early in spring, and so I had visited the structure and put together a list of some maintenance needs that needed to be done there. I contacted 4 to 5 different masonry contractors and showed them the war memorial and to try to look at what could be done there to fix it up. Generally, it was going to be tuck pointing was needed in between the existing bricks in all 4 sides of the structure. Well, those are some areas. There's some cracks in the mortar that need to be ground out and then filled in so that rainwater didn't continually get into there and start to crack apart the structure more than it is now. One contractor got back to me. They were going to give me a quote. Only one actually did. That was for $1,800 to complete the tuck pointing. We brought this item before the Public Works and Safety Committee at the last meeting, and the board wanted to get this work done as soon as possible, and ideally before Veterans Day on November 11th. So our staff had done some work on the clock tower area, and we went and checked it out to see if maybe we could do it, but the board, we have a lot of other things to do too. It's not our specialty to do this kind of work, but they could have done it. But the board proposed that since we had this contractor available to do the work and they were able to get on it right away, so we already have moved forward with this and got the work done. So the action requested of the village board is to consider approving ARPA allocation of $1,800 to fund the tuck pointing work at the War Memorial.
Any questions or comments?
I'm all for it, but I don't think we necessarily need to drop off of ARPA funds for $1,800.
I agree. I'm wondering if we can take that from Lehman Park.
No, don't start doing that.
Yeah.
So this was one of these weird scenarios, again, that we're now discovering that they're scattered throughout the village, that people have donated throughout time, and now it's our assets. And as Trustee Krasovich, picked up the flag for this, basically saying this is a memorial. This is supposed to be something that, is heralded as, a focal point, and not saying that DPW was going to do a poor job, but it was one of those where we wanted it done right, and wanted it done quickly. With Veterans Day coming up, and it's on the lakefront, it's a very focal point of the community, and so the ARPA funds are there for bettering the community. So that was kind of the idea that we came from it, opposed to approving it to be done professionally and not putting that burden on the DPW budget.
Any other comments?
I agree, it needs to get done, I just don't care where the money comes from.
And I apologize. Okay, I should.
Yeah,
I apologize.
you see, I wasn't.
Okay, you need to know a little bit of background because we have heard it. Kristen and I have heard it multiple times that we can't let these things start happening. It should be coming from, as far as money sourcing from laymen, it should be coming from Park and Rec and recommending it to us. And we're going, it's not going to happen. The village board isn't going to do that. Takes a supermajority. It isn't going to happen. Just don't want to go there unless we have to, okay? One comment I want to make, again, David, you and your team have been so proactive in getting things done in the village of Pewaukee, and it's a fantastic job you've been doing. And Chris, for you, it needed to be repaired. And so this is one of those things, yeah, good. Clock tower, wonderful, what you did there. And it's noticeable. People notice the efforts that you and your team are putting in, and we really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. And I do want to say the veterans that brought this to my attention are actually doing us huge favors in the village because they have a wonderful partnership with Harkin, who pays to replace the flags and the ropes on an as-needed basis. And, you know, we're kind of working collectively in a way that continues to honor all of our veterans. And I'm really, really pleased with the expediency at which this effort took place so that when the veterans come around on November 11th, Veterans Day, they can be proud of what they're standing in front of and saluting. So, well done, DPW.
So then where do we want to pull the money from?
Oh, I don't care about that.
Yeah. I mean, the work's done, which is the big thing, yeah. Now it's
It
just,
would be
That big old
nice-
Band-Aid called.
It would be nice, it would be nice to see this not hit the ledger for DPW, because honestly, it was our preference that we had this done via contractor, because we knew that the contractor could get it scheduled in time for Veterans Day. So I would prefer that we cover it in some other fashion.
same.
So, do I have a motion to use ARPA funds to rehabilitate the World War I memorial?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to use ARPA funds to pay the contractor who repaired the World War I memorial.
Second, Grabowski.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item D, review and quarterly financial reports and monthly approval of checks and invoices for all funds, September 2024. I'll look for a motion to approve all checks and invoices as shown this evening for September 2024, except for the library. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve checks and invoices.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. I will look for a motion to acknowledge the library financial reports.
Motion to acknowledge the library financial reports.
Second, Kaiser.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Discussion and possible action on stormwater maintenance agreements with the school, Pewaukee School District. This is a housekeeping matter that was brought forward. Does anybody have any questions or comments as it relates to that? Do I have anybody, would anybody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the two agreements presented related to stormwater maintenance.
Second, Rhodey.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Discussion and possible action on storage of fishing pier, Lakefront Park. Kristen has brought this forward from the, I believe, Park and Rec Department. So I'll look to her to handle this.
Yeah, so the Park and Rec director brought this up to me and asked if we could have a discussion and possible action on this at this meeting. The fishing pier will soon be, and Bob, please jump in if you have anything to add. The fishing pier will soon be removed, need to be removed from the lake for winter. So it's my understanding that last year was the first time that we stored it on the beach. And that was for a variety of reasons that all sound like they make a lot of sense. You know, from the sand being good for the pier, moving it on a truck is costly and not good for the longevity of the pier. And then just overall, the cost of the removal itself was dramatically less to do it that way. And Park and Rec is just looking for approval. I don't think they're under the impression that that was like you can do this every year scenario based on last year. So just looking for go forward approval or this year approval, that they can continue to do that and store it there on the beach.
I mean, it makes absolute sense. Economawalk does it. If you go past Lac La Belle, theirs are up on the beach as well. The only thing I ask is that they get them a little bit further up than what they did last year because they were still at the edge of the water. And I would really hate to lose any part of this dock to ice in the spring.
Yeah, I think part of the problem they ran into last year is it ran late and they had to wait to break ice. To get it. We don't have that issue this year. They learned a lot of different things with that experience last year. And as Kristen mentioned, it's actually a sizable cost savings and also will extend the life of the pier overall. Because the wear and tear of lifting, it's not made to be lifted up on trucks and then stored at the DPW and then brought back. It's better to be moved on to the soft stand. And the best part, it's based on our timing, not on depending for the barge company or when Kenny Weber, who has always donated, his truck. It's not dependent on that timing. We can do it, Park and Rec can do it themselves.
Now, what about the transient piers?
They'll be doing the same thing with that.
They'd be going up there too?
Yeah.
Okay.
And keep in mind, we can't do it over on the west side, down West Wisconsin, because you've got riffraff rock. You cannot store anything. It's got to be done on the soft sand. And then keep in mind, you've got the snow fence that's going in front of it. You're not really even going to see those up there.
Right.
And probably the only ones that see it would be the condos, right over there on the side.
And their view is already impacted by that snow fence. It's not as if there's anything really to look at in the winter. My only question would be, is there a way for us to make a motion that allows them to do this moving forward so we don't have to keep bringing it back? Now that we've had a year to kind of see if it's a success, is that a possibility?
Sure.
Great, it's good to know.
I have no problem with that. When I saw them out there last year, I didn't like them sitting out there because I was worried about the ice heave also. But that turned out okay even with them. I'm in full support, knowing the financial savings of them just being out there. I can admit when I'm wrong.
Because they came up before the snow fence went up, so I got a lot of people questioning, they're just going to leave that there? And then once you put the snow fence up, you didn't even notice them.
Nothing to see.
Yeah.
I think it's a good option, very good, smart option.
Yeah, I had several people say how unsightly it was, but then once.
So was the snow fence.
was-
Yep. I will make a motion to approve the storage of the fishing pier at Lakefront Park over the winter moving
In
forward.
perpetuity?
Forward, yeah.
Maybe unless there's an
Do we have to
issue
put
where
in
we need
there
to
the,
readdress.
transient piers too, or is that kind of understood?
Is that part of the request?
Only fishing
No, it
pier
isn't.
is on the agenda.
It's only on the agenda. it's
Not
fishing
on
pier,
the
you're right.
agenda, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, so just the fishing pier.
Okay, but they know about that, okay. Okay, I have a motion, did I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got a second too. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. There's nobody here, citizen-wise. We have no more closed session. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Grabowski.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Apologize.
I appreciate that because I was a little offended,
I'm sorry. Yeah. No.
especially with the layman stuff.